August 11th, 1922, East Village, Manhattan. A well-dressed man named Umberto Valenti just finished his last meal at John's of 12th Street. A plate of pasta, red sauce, and wine disguised in an espresso cup. He thought he was leaving a peace meeting. Instead, two gunmen, Lucky Luciano and Vito Genovese, were waiting across the street. Valenti stumbled toward a taxi, collapsed, and died on the corner. His blood mixed with the smell of garlic and tomato sauce still lingering in the air. This wasn't just murder. This was business. And business was booming. January 17th, 1920. America banned alcohol. The Volstead Act made it illegal to manufacture, sell, or transport liquor anywhere in the country. Overnight, thousands of legal bars shut down. Politicians expected Americans to stop drinking. They were catastrophically wrong. Instead, organized crime exploded. In New York alone, 32,000 illegal bars, speakeasies, opened within a decade. And the men running them? Italian-American gangsters like Al Capone, Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, and Frank Costello. They didn't just sell alcohol. They sold something America had never tasted before. Italian food as the cuisine of rebellion. Here's what most people don't know. Before Prohibition, fancy American restaurants served French cuisine in enormous formal dining rooms. But when they lost their liquor licenses, they died. Their prices skyrocketed to compensate for lost alcohol revenue. Customers vanished. Hotels that obeyed the law watched their dining rooms go dark. Meanwhile, Italian speakeasies were packed every night. Why? Because Italian gangsters understood something profound. Food and wine are inseparable. While legal restaurants bled money, mob-owned joints used their massive bootlegging profits to hire away the best chefs in New York. Al Capone alone made $60 million a year supplying illegal liquor to thousands of speakeasies he controlled. With that kind of cash, they could even lower food prices while serving the best pasta, pizza, and red sauce in the city. But there was strategy behind every dish. Heavy pasta and rich sauces slowed down drunkenness, keeping customers conscious and spending longer. Salty bar snacks kept them thirsty, ordering round after round. Italian food wasn't just delicious. It was a weapon for profit. And then there was the danger. John's of 12th Street, where Valenti died, made wine and whiskey in their basement during Prohibition. If police raided, servers poured alcohol into espresso cups to hide it. At the famous 21 Club, the architect built a secret wine cellar behind a false wall and installed a bar that, with the push of a button, dropped liquor bottles down a chute to crash and drain into the basement before federal agents could seize them. Some restaurants became death traps. Al Capone's favorite spot was Bella Napoli Cafe. In 1927, a rival mobster offered the chef between $10,000 and $35,000 to poison Capone's soup with prussic acid. The chef told Capone instead. Capone's response? He sent men with machine guns to the rival's bakery and fired over 200 bullets through the windows. This was the world Italian food was born into in America. Violence, secrecy, loyalty, and power. By 1933, when Prohibition ended, French fine dining was finished. Italian cuisine had conquered America. But the mob's control over food was just beginning. Because what came next wasn't just restaurants. It was entire supply chains. Olive oil, tomatoes, wine, controlled by men who built empires on more than just bullets. April 7th, 1972, 4:30 a.m. Little Italy, Manhattan. Umberto's Clam house was almost empty. Just a few regulars at the bar, a waitress wiping down tables, and one special party in the back corner. Joey Gallo, his new wife Sina, his sister Carmela, his stepdaughter, and his bodyguard Pete the Greek Diapolis. They'd just come from the Copacabana, where they'd watched Don Rickles perform. Joey, nicknamed Crazy Joe by the press, invited Rickles and singer Peter Lemongello to join them at Umberto's for a late-night birthday meal. Both performers politely declined. That decision probably saved their lives. Joey ordered spaghetti with clams, the house specialty. He sat facing the wall, his back to the door. A rookie mistake for a man with as many enemies as Crazy Joe Gallo. At the bar sat Joseph Luparelli, a Colombo family associate. The moment he saw Gallo walk in, he stood up and left without paying. He walked 2 blocks to a Colombo family hangout and made a phone call. Within minutes, 4 men armed with pistols drove to Umberto's. 1 stayed in the car, 3 walked through the back door. Witnesses said it happened fast. The gunman opened fire. Joey was hit in the back, buttocks, and elbow. He stumbled toward the front door, leaving a trail of blood across the black and white checkered floor. He collapsed on the street. His sister screamed. His wife cradled his head. By the time the ambulance arrived, Joey Gallo was dead at 43 years old. The spaghetti and clams never made it to the table. This was the world of Italian-American organized crime in the 1970s. Restaurants weren't just social spaces. They were hunting grounds. If you wanted to find a mobster, you didn't look for him in a dark alley. You looked for him in his favorite Italian joint, eating linguine at 2 a.m., surrounded by family, thinking he was safe. Joey Gallo's murder became iconic. The Sopranos finale, where Tony sits in a diner with his family, noticing a suspicious man at the bar before the screen cuts to black, was directly inspired by the Umberto's hit. Series creator David Chase admitted the parallel. A mob boss, a family meal, a gunman entering from behind, and sudden violence in a place that should have been sacred. But Umberto's wasn't the only restaurant turned crime scene.
In 1979, Carmine Galante, boss of the Bonanno family, was having lunch at Joe and Mary's Italian-American restaurant in Brooklyn. He sat in the garden patio, chomping on a cigar, eating pasta with his bodyguards. 3 masked gunmen rushed in and opened fire. Galante died with the cigar still clenched between his teeth. The crime scene photo, his body slumped in a chair, cigar in mouth, blood pooling under the table, became one of the most famous mafia images in history. Why did mobsters keep eating in public if it was so dangerous? Because not showing up was even more dangerous. If you stopped going to your regular spots, people thought you were weak, paranoid, or planning something. Visibility was power. Eating in public, surrounded by your crew, sent a message. I'm here. I'm in charge. I'm not afraid. And the restaurants themselves became complicit. Owners knew their establishments were mafia hangouts. They knew murders happened there. But they kept serving, kept taking the money, kept their mouths shut. Because in neighborhoods like Little Italy, the Bronx, and South Brooklyn, the mob wasn't just customers. They were the neighborhood. After Joey Gallo's murder, Umberto stayed open. Tourists started showing up, asking to sit where he died, ordering the same spaghetti and clams he never got to eat. The restaurant became a macabre attraction, a place where you could taste history and death on the same plate. And this wasn't just about murder. It was about control. Because while mobsters were killing each other in Italian restaurants, they were also using those same restaurants to build one of the biggest drug empires in American history. And the product they were moving? It came hidden in the same trucks that delivered tomatoes, cheese, and olive oil.
1935, New York City. Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia had a problem. Every artichoke sold in the city was controlled by one man, Ciro Terranova, the artichoke king. Terranova's racket was simple and ruthless. He bought artichokes from California farms at $6 per crate, then sold them to New York markets at a 30 to 40% markup. Try to buy from anyone else? His men showed up with machetes and hacked down your fields in the dead of night. Refuse to buy from him? Your vegetable stand might burn down. LaGuardia was furious. On December 21, 1935, he did something no mayor had ever done. He banned the sale, display, and possession of artichokes in New York City. The ban lasted only 1 week, but it sent a message. Terranova's empire was crumbling. By 1938, he died of a stroke, paralyzed, impoverished, and forgotten. But Terranova had already taught organized crime something crucial. Controlling food was safer and more profitable than bootlegging. Think about it. Prohibition ended in 1933. The mob lost its biggest moneymaker overnight. So they pivoted. Instead of illegal alcohol, they infiltrated legitimate food supply chains. Olive oil, tomatoes, cheese, wine. These weren't just side businesses. They became the backbone of mafia operations for the next century. Here's how deep it went. In the 1990s, Italian authorities raided Casa Olearia, one of Europe's largest olive oil companies. What they found was staggering. Millions of liters of cheap Tunisian olive oil falsely labeled as premium Italian extra virgin. The owner? Leonardo Marseglia,
had been importing low-grade oil, disguising it as European, then collecting EU subsidies meant for Italian producers. Prosecutors called it the Marseglia method, a blueprint for olive oil fraud that criminals copied for decades. And it worked. Today, experts estimate that 75 to 80% of extra virgin olive oil sold globally is fake. Organized crime's profit margin on adulterated olive oil is 3 times higher than cocaine. The Italian mafia, particularly the 'Ndrangheta, exports counterfeit oil to the United States, mixing cheap seed oils with chlorophyll and beta-carotene to mimic the color and taste of real olive oil. In 2025, masked gunmen in southern Italy hijacked a truck carrying olive oil at gunpoint, treating it like gold. Because in a way, it is. Italians call it green gold, but olive oil was just the beginning. The mafia controlled entire food sectors. They rigged wholesale fruit and vegetable markets, ensuring only mob-connected vendors could sell. They infiltrated logistics and transportation companies, using food trucks to smuggle drugs and weapons across borders. In one operation, Italian police discovered mafia clans hiding cocaine shipments inside canned tomatoes and balsamic vinegar bottles. The food business was the perfect cover. Massive shipments, minimal scrutiny, and massive profits. In Italy alone, mafia-related food sales are worth 21 billion euros annually. Police have confiscated property from 3,000 companies over the past 30 years, including farms, wholesalers, and logistics firms. All fronts for organized crime. The Italian government created a special task force, Elite Food Police, to hunt down these operations. They call it the agro-mafia. And here's the terrifying part. It's still happening. In 2025, mafia groups in southern Italy are recruiting specialized thieves from across Europe to steal olive oil shipments. They strip entire olive groves in minutes using mechanized shakers, sometimes destroying the trees entirely. Farmers are too afraid to report the thefts because of violent retaliation. So the next time you pour olive oil on your salad or buy imported Italian tomatoes, ask yourself, where did this really come from? Because there's a good chance the mob touched it somewhere along the way. And if the mafia controlled what you ate in the market, imagine what they controlled when you sat down at their table.
April 1931, Atlantic City, New Jersey. The President Hotel on the boardwalk. Inside a luxury suite overlooking the ocean, 7 men sat around a table covered with plates of veal, lobster, pasta, and bottles of wine smuggled from Sicily. These weren't politicians or businessmen. They were the most powerful gangsters in America, and they were about to change organized crime forever. Lucky Luciano leaned back in his chair and made his pitch. No more wars. No more boss of all bosses. Instead, a council, the Commission, where the heads of the 5 New York crime families would share power, vote on major decisions, and settle disputes without bloodshed. Each boss would control his own territory, his own operations, but they would work together, like a corporation, not a dictatorship. Around that table sat the founders of modern organized crime. Joe Bonanno, Tommy Lucchese, Joe Profaci, Vincent Mangano, and Frank Costello. They agreed. the Commission was born. And for the next 60 years, it ruled the American underworld from behind the closed doors of restaurants, social clubs, and private dining rooms. Why restaurants? Because in the Mafia, eating together meant trust. You don't sit across a table, break bread, and share wine with someone you're planning to kill. The meal itself was a ritual, a temporary truce, a symbol that while they might be criminals, they still had rules, still had honor. Meetings were held during multi-course feasts that lasted hours, where deals were negotiated between antipasto and dessert, and betrayals were sometimes decided over espresso. But not every meeting went smoothly. November 14th, 1957, Appalachian, New York, a tiny hamlet in the southern tier. Population barely 300 people. Joseph Joe the Barber Barbara owned a sprawling 58-acre estate there, complete with a main house, guest house, an outdoor barbecue pavilion. It was the perfect location for the biggest mafia summit in American history. Vito Genovese had just murdered Albert Anastasia, the boss of Murder, Inc., and seized control of what would become the Genovese crime family. Now he wanted legitimacy. So he called a meeting. Not just the 5 families. All of them. Every major boss from New York to Florida to California. Plus delegates from Cuba and Sicily. Over 100 mafiosi received invitations. They arrived in black Cadillacs and Lincolns. License plates from Illinois, Ohio, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California. They wore tailored suits, silk ties, fedoras, and polished shoes. The plan? A huge outdoor barbecue. Steaks, sausages, wine. Business conducted over grilled meat and cigar smoke in the fresh country air. But Appalachian was a sleepy town. And suddenly, on the morning of November 14th, expensive cars with out-of-state plates started rolling through Main Street, one after another, all heading toward Joe Barbara's estate. 2 New York State troopers, Sergeant Edgar Croswell and Trooper Vincent Vizisco, noticed. They'd been watching Barbara for months, suspecting him of illegal activity. This was too suspicious to ignore. Croswell called for backup. By early afternoon, state police had set up roadblocks on every road leading out of Barbara's property. Then they raided. The scene that followed was chaos. Over 100 mob bosses, men who controlled billion-dollar criminal enterprises, ran into the woods like rabbits. They scrambled through muddy fields, ripping their $2,000 suits on barbed wire fences, ruining their Italian leather shoes in streams and cow pastures. Some hid in pig pens. Others climbed trees. State troopers chased them down, one by one, dragging them out covered in dirt, soaking wet, humiliated. One local farmer later told reporters he watched a man in an expensive suit crawl under his tractor to hide. When police dragged him out, mud covering his face, the farmer recognized him from newspaper photos. Carlo Gambino, future boss of the most powerful crime family in New York. Gambino didn't say a word. He just brushed the dirt off his lapels and walked to the police car like he owned it. Police arrested 58 men that day. Among them, Vito Genovese, Joe Bonanno, Santo Trafficante Jr., and Russell Buffalino. A who's who of American organized crime. All of them caught red-handed at what was supposed to be a secret national summit. The aftermath was devastating. The Appalachian raid proved the Mafia existed. For years, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover had publicly denied that a national crime syndicate operated.
After Appalachian, the commission became paranoid. Meetings moved underground, literally. Bosses started gathering in basements, private clubs with no windows, back rooms of butcher shops. Some even held meetings while walking through parks or driving in circles, making it harder for the FBI to plant bugs. But restaurants? They never stopped using them. Because in the end, food was still the language of the Mafia. It was how they built alliances, showed respect, demonstrated power. The commission still technically exists today, though most of its original power is gone. The bosses are in prison or dead. The glory days are over. But the ritual remains. Sit down, share a meal, and for a few hours, pretend you're not a criminal. Just a man who loves good food, family, and tradition. Because as Lucky Luciano understood back in 1931, the Mafia wasn't just about violence. It was about order. And order, in their world, began at the table. But while the commission built empires in boardrooms and back rooms, the real heart of Mafia power wasn't in conference halls. It was in the restaurants themselves. The places where bosses sat every night, where deals were struck, and where sometimes the wrong seat at the wrong table could be your last. December 16th, 1985. East 46th Street, Manhattan. 5:26 p.m. Paul Castellano, boss of the Gambino crime family, the most powerful mafia organization in America, stepped out of his black Lincoln Continental in front of Sparks Steakhouse. He was there for a meeting. He never made it through the door. 3 men in white trench coats and black fur hats rushed toward him. They opened fire. 6 bullets hit Castellano. His bodyguard, Thomas Bellotti, took 4 more. Both men collapsed on the sidewalk as Christmas shoppers scattered screaming. Across the street, sitting in a parked Lincoln sedan with tinted windows, John Gotti watched. Once the bodies stopped moving, he drove slowly past to confirm the kill, then disappeared into midtown traffic. This wasn't just murder. This was a coronation. Gotti had just seized control of the Gambino family in one of the most brazen hits in Mafia history. Carried out in broad daylight in front of a packed restaurant in the heart of Manhattan. And it happened outside a steakhouse. Because in the world of organized crime, restaurants weren't just places to eat. They were headquarters, courtrooms, and execution sites. Take Rayo's, a tiny Italian restaurant on East 114th Street in Harlem. It's been open since 1896, and if you're thinking of getting a reservation, forget it. Rayo's has only 10 tables, and every single one is permanently owned by a regular customer. You don't call for a reservation. You inherit your table like a family heirloom, or you get invited by someone who owns one. Madonna once tried to get in. She couldn't. But John Gotti? He had a table. So did Paul Castellano, Lucky Luciano, and Al Capone. Members of Cosa Nostra treated Rayo's like a second office. Deals were made over plates of lemon chicken and linguine. Disputes were settled. Loyalties were tested. And sometimes, guns came out. On December 22, 2003, Louis Lump Lump Barone was eating dinner at Rayo's when Albert Alley Boy Krishy, a wannabe wise guy, insulted him in front of the entire restaurant. Krishy made the fatal mistake of disrespecting Barone at his own table. Barone pulled out a .38 revolver and shot Krishy in the back, killing him instantly. The whole thing happened in front of cops, celebrities, and Sopranos actors who were dining there that night. Barone was convicted of murder, but even in court, he showed no remorse. "What was I supposed to do?" he said. "Let him disrespect me at Rayo's?" Because in the Mafia, a restaurant table wasn't just furniture. It was territory. Owning a table at Rayo's meant you had power, respect, and access. Losing that table meant you were nobody. Then there was the Ravenite Social Club at 247 Mulberry Street in Little Italy. Officially, it was a private Italian heritage club founded in 1919. In reality, it was the nerve center of the Gambino crime family for decades. Carlo Gambino ran operations there in the 1950s, until FBI surveillance forced him out. His successor, Aniello Della Croce, took over and used it as his base. And when Della Croce died, John Gotti moved in. Gotti held court at the Ravenite like a king. Every day, union bosses, corrupt politicians, loan sharks, and hitmen lined up outside to pay their respects and receive orders. The FBI filmed it all. They watched as Gotti walked into the club in his $2,000 suits, shaking hands and kissing cheeks like a movie star. But they couldn't touch him. He beat every charge for years, earning the nickname, the Teflon Don. Until the FBI planted bugs in the apartment above the Ravenite. For months, agents recorded Gotti's private conversations, ordering hits, discussing drug deals, bragging about murders. Those tapes destroyed him. In 1992, Gotti was convicted of racketeering, murder, and conspiracy, largely because of what he said inside that restaurant. He died in prison in 2002. Spark Steakhouse? Still open.
still serving the same dry-aged porterhouse that Castellano never got to eat. Tourists take selfies on the spot where he died. Rayo's, still the most exclusive restaurant in New York, still serving regulars who've owned their tables for generations. The Ravenite, now a men's clothing store. But the code remains. In the Mafia, food was never just food. It was power, loyalty, territory. And sometimes, it was the last thing you ever tasted. And soon, that same code, the rituals, the violence, the mystique, would escape the streets of New York and explode onto movie screens, turning mobsters into legends and their favorite dishes into American icons.
Brooklyn, New York. Al Dente Pizzeria looked like 1,000 other pizza joints in the city. Red checkered tablecloths, pictures of Sicily on the walls, the smell of baking dough and melting mozzarella. Customers walked in, ordered slices, and walked out. Normal, ordinary, unremarkable. Except for one thing. The pizzeria was moving $1.6 billion worth of heroin. Welcome to the Pizza Connection, the most sophisticated drug trafficking operation in Mafia history. Here's how it worked. In the late 1970s, Sicilian Mafia boss Gaetano Badalamenti partnered with Salvatore Toto Catalano, a captain in the Bonanno crime family. Together, they created a network that imported heroin from Turkey, refined it in Palermo, Sicily, then shipped it to the United States, hidden in food shipments. Canned tomatoes, wheels of cheese, bags of espresso beans. Once the heroin arrived in New York, it was distributed through a chain of pizzerias across the East Coast and Midwest. New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan. The pizzerias weren't just fronts, they were distribution hubs. Dealers walked in, ordered a large pepperoni to go, and walked out with a bag containing heroin instead of pizza. Transactions happened in plain sight, disguised as normal takeout orders. Between 1975 and 1984, the Pizza Connection moved 1,650 pounds of pure heroin into American cities. That's enough to supply tens of thousands of addicts for years. The street value? $1.6 billion. Equivalent to over $4 billion today. And it almost worked. The FBI noticed something strange in 1980. Sicilian immigrants with no visible income were buying pizzerias in cash. They paid $50,000, $100,000 up front. No loans, no questions. Then they started making suspicious international calls to Sicily, speaking in coded language about suits, shirts, and merchandise. Wiretaps revealed they weren't talking about clothes. They were negotiating heroin shipments. The investigation took years. Agents had to learn Sicilian dialects, decode mob slang, and track money flowing through Swiss banks, offshore accounts, and currency exchanges in Brazil. They surveilled over 30 pizzerias simultaneously, watching who came in, who left, what they carried. In 1984, the FBI struck. They arrested 22 mafia members in coordinated raids across 5 states. The trial began in 1985 and lasted 17 months. One of the longest criminal trials in American history. Over 275 witnesses testified. The prosecution presented thousands of wiretapped phone calls, financial records, and surveillance photos. The evidence was overwhelming. Badalamenti and Catalano were convicted, along with nearly all the other defendants. Badalamenti got 45 years. Catalano got 45 years and a $1.15 million fine. The pizza connection was destroyed. But the case revealed something terrifying. Food businesses were the perfect cover for organized crime. Think about it. Pizzerias received deliveries every day. Trucks pulling up with flour, tomatoes, cheese, meat. Who's going to inspect every box? Who's going to open every crate? The sheer volume of legitimate food shipments made it nearly impossible for authorities to spot the illegal ones. And it wasn't just heroin. In 2016, federal agents busted another operation, the Cassava Connection, where the Genovese family smuggled cocaine hidden in cassava root, used to make tapioca pudding, from Costa Rica through a pizzeria in Queens. Same playbook, different drug. 30 years later. Italian organized crime expert Antonio Nicasso explained it simply. You can do this with any restaurant, but pizzerias were just easier to buy, easier to run, and less suspicious. There were people coming for pizza and people coming for heroin. 2 different lines, same business. The pizza connection changed how law enforcement viewed Italian restaurants. Every pizzeria, every trattoria, every deli became a potential front. The FBI created specialized units to monitor food importers, track cash purchases of restaurants, and analyze patterns in delivery routes. But by then, the damage was done. The Mafia had proven that food wasn't just their culture. It was their infrastructure. The same trucks that brought America its favorite Italian dishes also brought its deadliest drugs. The same ovens that baked pizza also laundered billions in blood money. And the restaurants themselves, most stayed open. After the trials, after the convictions, after the headlines faded, people still wanted pizza. Some of the old Pizza Connection storefronts are still operating today.
But while drugs and murder dominated the headlines, another transformation was happening. The Mafia wasn't just selling food and heroin. They were selling themselves, becoming icons, legends,
and characters in the greatest stories ever told about American crime. 1972, Paramount Pictures released The Godfather. In one scene, Peter Clemenza, a capo in the Corleone family, stands in a cramped kitchen teaching a young gangster how to make tomato sauce while casually planning a murder. He starts by frying sausages and meatballs, adds onions and garlic, then pours in crushed tomatoes and a little wine. "Don't forget the sugar," he says. Then, without missing a beat, he gives instructions on how to hide a gun in a restaurant bathroom and kill a crooked cop at close range. The scene lasts less than 2 minutes, but it changed American food culture forever. Because The Godfather didn't just show gangsters, it showed them cooking, and Americans fell in love with it. Before The Godfather, Italian food in America was cheap, immigrant fare. Spaghetti joints in Little Italy serving red-checkered tablecloth meals to working-class families. After The Godfather, it became iconic. Suddenly, making your own sauce wasn't just cooking, it was tradition, power, family. The film turned Italian-American food into a symbol of loyalty, strength, and authenticity. And the proof is in the details. In The Godfather, food appears in nearly every major scene. Wedding feasts piled high with pasta and pastries, family dinners around crowded tables, a severed horse head staining white silk sheets with blood next to an untouched breakfast tray. Even the famous final line, "Leave the gun, take the cannoli," makes dessert as memorable as murder. The cannoli wasn't just a prop. In Sicilian culture, the cream-filled pastry symbolizes fertility, celebration, and life's sweetness. Placing it next to a gun barrel still warm from a killing was Coppola's genius. Life and death, family and violence, all on the same plate. Critics and scholars noticed. One analysis called Food in The Godfather one of the most powerful means of ethnic characterization ever put on film. Another wrote that food is understood to be the single most important stamp of ethnic authenticity for Italians in cinema. The Corleones never eat lobster or caviar, even when they become wealthy. They eat ravioli, made by hand, passed down through generations. Because in their world, tradition isn't something you abandon when you get rich. It's something you protect with your life. Then came Goodfellas in 1990. Martin Scorsese took it even further. In one of the most famous food scenes in cinema, mob capo Paulie Cicero, played by Paul Sorvino, cooks an entire Italian feast inside a prison cell. He slices garlic with a razor blade so thin it melts into the sauce. He fries sausages on a hot plate. He pours wine into simmering tomatoes while discussing hijackings and loan sharking. The camera lingers on the food like it's filming a cooking show, because for Scorsese, whose own mother provided the recipe and appeared on screen, this was real life. Mob bosses actually cooked. They fed their men. They even sent food down to the cops, surveilling them outside.
Scorsese later said, "Food in mob movies isn't a detail, it's the code. It's how these men show respect, build trust, and hold power." And audiences believed him. Goodfellas became a cultural phenomenon, and Italian restaurants across America started branding themselves with mob aesthetics. Framed photos of The Godfather, red sauce recipes, passed down from the old country, waiters with Brooklyn accents. But the show that truly cemented the connection was The Sopranos. For 6 seasons, starting in 1999,
HBO turned Sunday dinners into an art form. Carmela Soprano cooked elaborate feasts: pasta carbonara, sausage and peppers, chicken parmigiana, baked ziti, while her mobster husband Tony plotted murders between bites. Food wasn't background. It was the glue that held the show together. One episode featured a parish priest walking through a thunderstorm just to tell Carmela how good her pasta was. Another showed Tony and his crew devouring steaks at a New Jersey restaurant, talking business deals over Caesar salads and breadsticks. Real restaurants in New Jersey, like Holston's in Bloomfield, where the series finale was filmed, became pilgrimage sites for fans. Some are still operating today, serving the same dishes Tony Soprano ate on screen. And here's what The Sopranos did that no film could. It made Italian-American food relatable. These weren't distant 1940s gangsters in Sicily. These were modern families in suburban New Jersey, dealing with therapy, soccer practice, and leftover ziti. The show depicted food as a central part of family life and cultural traditions, using it as a way to bring people together. It broke stereotypes by showing that Italian Americans weren't just mobsters. They were people who valued cooking, hospitality, and their heritage. The impact is staggering. Today, Italian cuisine is the most popular ethnic food in America. Chains like Olive Garden serve 450 million breadsticks annually. Sunday gravy, the term Goodfellas popularized for slow-cooked tomato sauce, is now a trendy recipe on food blogs. Even the phrase, "take the cannoli," became shorthand for seizing life's pleasures amid chaos. And it all started with gangsters in kitchens. Men who turned poverty into power. Immigrants who used food to claim their place in America. Criminals who made cooking a symbol of respect. So the next time you sit down for spaghetti and meatballs, remember, you're not just eating dinner. You're tasting a legacy built on blood, tradition, and the most dangerous empire ever hidden in plain sight. The food that built the Mafia.
November 8th, 1991. Federal courtroom, Brooklyn, New York. The trial of John Gotti, the Dapper Don, boss of the Gambino crime family, the most powerful mobster in America, was entering its final days. The prosecution had one last witness, a man who had stood beside Gotti for years. A man who helped murder Paul Castellano on a crowded Manhattan street. A man who admitted to killing 19 people for the Mafia. His name was Salvatore "Sammy the Bull" Gravano. And when he took the stand, he destroyed everything. Gravano testified for 9 days. He described murders, extortion, loan sharking, and the inner workings of the Gambino family in excruciating detail. He explained how Gotti orchestrated Castellano's assassination outside Sparks Steakhouse. He recounted conversations in restaurants where hits were planned over pasta and espresso. He even described how mobsters celebrated successful murders with lavish Italian feasts, toasting their dead enemies with wine. The jury convicted Gotti on all counts: 5 murders, racketeering, obstruction of justice, tax evasion. On June 23, 1992, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He died behind bars 10 years later. And it all fell apart because of one law: RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, passed in 1970, was designed to prosecute entire criminal enterprises, not just individual crimes. Before RICO, even if the FBI caught a mobster committing murder, they could only charge him with that one crime. His boss? Untouchable. But RICO changed everything. It allowed prosecutors to charge mafia leaders for crimes they ordered, even if they never pulled the trigger themselves. Then came the Mafia Commission trial of 1985. Federal prosecutor Rudy Giuliani indicted the heads of all. Phoenix, Arizona. Salvatore "Sammy the Bull" Gravano, the man who destroyed John Gotti, launched a new business. Not drugs, not extortion. A marinara sauce brand. He called it Uncle Sal's Sauce. The label featured a cartoon mob boss in a fedora, stirring a pot of red sauce with a wooden spoon. The tagline? A killer recipe. Gravano sold jars online and promoted them on his podcast, where he told stories about the 19 people he murdered while offering cooking tips between anecdotes. This is what the Mafia became in the 21st century. Brand. Victoria Gotti, daughter of John Gotti, wrote a cookbook called The Gotti Family Cookbook, featuring her father's favorite recipes: Sunday gravy, chicken scarpariello, baked ziti. She appeared on reality TV shows, hosted cooking segments, and turned her last name into a lifestyle brand. The same name that once struck fear into New York's underworld now sold on Amazon for $19.99. And they weren't alone. Former mobsters, mob widows, and even the children of murdered gangsters started opening restaurants, writing cookbooks, and cashing in on the Mafia's culinary legacy. In 2019, a TV series called Mafia Restaurants premiered, profiling Italian eateries with ties to organized crime. The show didn't hide the connections, it celebrated them. Each episode featured a restaurant owner explaining how their grandfather ran numbers for the Genovese family, or how their uncle was Lucchese's driver. Then cut to footage of them making meatballs and pouring wine for customers. Tourists eat it up, literally. Today you can take mob tours in New York City that stop at famous Mafia restaurants. Guides, often dressed in fedoras and pinstripe suits, walk groups through Little Italy, pointing out where Joey Gallo was killed, where John Gotti ate dinner, where the Ravenite Social Club used to stand. The tours end with a multi-course Italian meal at a mob-connected restaurant, where diners toast with wine and joke about sleeping with the fishes. Some of these restaurants are still run by Mafia families. In 2025, a YouTube video titled Top 10 Mob-Owned Restaurants Today in New York identified active establishments with alleged ties to the Genovese and Lucchese families. One pizzeria in Queens, reportedly owned by a Lucchese soldier, was reviewed by celebrity pizza critic Dave Portnoy, who gave it a 6.6 rating and had no idea he was eating at a Mafia front. The line between crime and culture is completely blurred. But here's the uncomfortable truth. People love it. They love the danger, the mystique, the romance of the mob. They love the idea that their marinara sauce recipe came from a man who once strangled someone with his bare hands. They love sitting at the same table where a boss planned a hit. Sociologists call this dark tourism, the phenomenon where people are drawn to sites of tragedy, violence, and death. And Mafia restaurants are the perfect example. You're not just eating pasta, you're consuming history. You're touching something real, something dangerous, something forbidden. And the former mobsters? They're happy to sell it to you. Sammy Gravano once said in an interview, "People ask me, how can you sell sauce after everything you did?" And I tell them, this is America. I did my time. Now I'm giving people what they want. A taste of the life. The irony is staggering. The same government that spent billions trying to destroy the Mafia now allows its former members to profit off their crimes, as long as they're selling food instead of drugs. The same FBI agents who busted the pizza connection now watch as convicted mobsters launch cooking shows and branded product lines. Because in America,
Even killers get a second act, especially if they can cook. And maybe that's the ultimate victory of the Mafia. They lost the war. Their bosses died in prison, their families collapsed. But their culture survived. Their food became America's food. Their rituals became America's traditions. Their stories became America's entertainment. Walk into any Italian restaurant in America today, from a Michelin-starred trattoria in Manhattan to an Olive Garden in suburban Ohio, and you'll see traces of the Mafia. The red checkered tablecloths, the framed photos of the Godfather, the Sunday gravy simmering for hours, the sense that food isn't just fuel, it's family. That's the legacy. Not the murders, not the drugs, not the fear, the food. So the next time you sit down for spaghetti and meatballs, pour olive oil on fresh bread, or bite into a cannoli, remember, you're tasting history. You're honoring a legacy built on blood, loyalty, and the most dangerous empire ever hidden in plain sight. The food that built the Mafia. And in the end, it's the only thing they left behind that anyone wants to remember.